Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Ski Instructor Podcast. My name is Dave Burrows. I'm the director of SnowPros Ski School based here in Val d'Illiers in Switzerland. This week I had or some time ago actually, but I had the great pleasure of speaking to Andi McCann. Now I first met Andy when I was taking my level 3 British technical exam, and it really was an amazing week for me. There was 2 or 3 things within that week that I got from Andy that have sort of stayed with me to this date, and we actually talk about a couple of those on this podcast. But he's a tough man to get hold of because he sort of flies all over the world doing events for Rolls-Royce amongst his skiing activity, and he's quite a difficult man to pin down. But so I suppose that's one benefit of this current coronavirus thing is that we've been able to actually get access to some great guests, and I'm really pleased to have spent this time interviewing Andy and sort of picking his brains on some of the questions that I had. In terms of Corona, I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about it, but here in Switzerland we finished our sort of phase 1 of our measures here on I think it was about 11th of May, so we're about 7 days in now to sort of post-Corona life. People are out enjoying the sunshine, the cafes and restaurants, terraces are packed, although with a little bit more distance, and people seem to be going back to normal relatively quickly. So wherever you are, I hope that experience comes to you as well, and we'll see where all of this leads. One thing from my point of view is that I really hope that this doesn't happen again, because I'm not sure how many businesses within the tourism sector, certainly in this part of Switzerland, will survive another shutdown of this sort of length of time. And I think that's something that whoever makes these decisions really needs to bear in mind if they're thinking of a Corona lockdown part 2. I wonder if there is another way now that the statistics have all come out in terms of who is at risk and who isn't. But there you go. There's other people than me that are working on that. In part 1 here, we talk about sort of Andy's skiing and history, skiing background and history, and then we move on to a couple of it's quite a technical episode, this one. So we talk about the hip joint, we talk about snowplow, ramp angle, boots, that kind of thing. So there's quite a lot of technical information in this first one, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. So without further ado, here we go. Welcome to the Ski Instructor Podcast. Andi McCann, how are you? Hello?
I'm great, thank you very much. And hopefully we can start with thanking you very much for taking the time and great work of what you're doing, putting this together.
Oh, that's great. I mean, you've been on my hit list for a while because I did my level 3 technical exam under the British system in your under your keen eye, and a couple of things that you said on that course have stuck with me for a very long time, and I know a lot of people really respect kind of your knowledge within the industry, so it's been quite important to me to try and get you onto the podcast. I think we can it'll be lovely to have a record of some of the stuff that you can tell us.
Super, thank you.
Right. Well, let's start with a bit of a bio. We always start with a bit of a bio. Maybe you can give us a sort of potted history of your sort of skiing past. I know that you were there. For those who have listened to the Joe Beer episode will know that you were part of the Andorra scene back then. And maybe you could just give us an idea of how you came up within the industry and where that took you.
Well, first of all, I was lucky enough to go skiing with my parents. They hadn't skied before. The folks both liked the snow. Mm-hmm. So by the time my parents were in a position to go skiing, they were unfortunately married with 2 children. So we went to Austria. Right. I was the ripe old age of 4. So on my first ski trip, I had lace-up leather boots and skis with screw-on edges and cable bindings. Wow. And I just remember the whole experience just being completely surreal. And my father said to me, he said, after your first turn, which was on the first run, fortunately, and I managed to do a little what I call as a kid's hockey stop.
Yeah.
And my instructor looked at him and he said, "I think you'll be okay." Because obviously I was surrounded by Austrian children, and bearing in mind this was back in the 70s, in the mid 70s, for British families to go skiing. Then I remember my father telling me, I think it cost almost as much as the house to go on a 2-week holiday.
Yeah.
I sort of got the bug, really, and my father was part of a ski club, actually, in Somerset, where I live.
Wow.
The Mendip Ski Club, and he was instrumental of looking at sites to put together artificial ski centres. So he was involved in the original planning for the Gloucester Ski Centre. And when Gloucester Artificial Slope opened, we used to go there as a family skiing. But they had a drag lift, nothing, so you had to walk up.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind, it's still now one of the longest in the country.
Yeah.
You certainly earned your turns after walking up there. It was nuts. It was really nuts. But everyone used to do it. We used to go there on a Sunday and have a great time. And the ski poles were nothing more than wooden broom handles because it was such early days. I also remember we did some grass skiing as well.
Okay.
And which was just nuts. Again, you used to walk up to the top of a hill and come down.
Yeah.
And as soon as the slope in South Wales opened in Pontypool, they actually had a drag lift, and we realised it was quicker to get to Pontypool. And that's where I really got the bug of coaching, I suppose. The instructors over there were absolutely first class. There was a chap who ran the ski school at Pontypool called Colin Whiteside, who was part of the BASI Interski demo team. And he was just very clear on a technique. And I think on family holidays, what struck me most was every time you went to a ski school, the instructor would tell you something different. And although I was young, I wanted to think logically. And wondered why one instructor would tell me to do one thing, and then the year later on a family holiday, I was asked to do something else. There never seemed to be any connection between one week to the next, and that was interesting thinking back now. Even if we went skiing in Austria for 3 or 4 years in a row, there didn't seem to be much continuity even back then.
Yeah.
So I guess I got fascinated with technique even as a kid. But when I started to ski with people that could speak my language, although it was in South Wales, met some great friends over there and some lifelong buddies. And I actually did my training there in between doing my level 1 and level 2 BASI course.
Yes.
Slightly before that, I was on a ski trip with my school in Italy. And my ski instructor said, he said, "Oh, you've done a little bit of skiing." I said, "Yeah, it's I do as much as I can." That instructor happened to be a guy called Derek Bowen, who was on the English ski team at the time. He gave me the address of BASI, and I didn't even know BASI existed at that time. I was only about 13 or 14. So I wrote a letter to BASI asking if I could do a ski instructor course. And they said, yeah, of course you can, when you get to the age, I think it was 17 or 18 then, was the restriction. You can come on a course. Unfortunately, my father was very ill in hospital for a period of about 3 years.
Right.
And my grandfather wrote a letter to the school to see if I could take some time off school to go and do a ski course, because it was classed as further education. Right. So I actually finished up doing my very first BASI course, effectively in my leading up to my Christmas school holidays. Hence, he didn't tell the truth on my BASI application form of my date of birth. He sort of added a couple of years on so I could actually do my course.
Yeah.
So I rolled up in Val Thorens in December. It's not the warmest place in the world anyway, but I rolled up there in December surrounded by what I thought was, world-class skiers, and there's me at the ripe old age of about 15 in this class, just wondering what on earth had hit me.
Yeah.
And that's why I had my first beer as well, I think, to the extent that beers those days were a litre and nothing smaller.
Yes.
So I learned the hard way, I think, on my first week. Excuse me. And then it continued, really. My first trainer was Patsy Duncan, who was superb, and I've got a lot to thank her for. And then I actually went for an interview with a ski company because I didn't have a job to go to. During that summer, I left school, and at the end of the year, I did an interview, and that season I was due to spend in France. Unexpectedly, I got the job, bearing in mind I had no teaching experience at all, other than the hours that you have to do for the BASI. And bizarrely, they sent me a letter with about 3 weeks before we were due to leave, saying that your position with our company as a ski instructor is no longer required because the French don't want any British qualified instructors in the resort. And that was back in, I think, about 83.
Okay, so this isn't a new thing then.
Yeah. So I sort of panicked a little bit because it was sort of then, I think, 2 weeks prior to the start of the season. And I went to the ski show in Oscourt, bumped into John Pickett, who was a trainer at the time, who I got to know very well whilst I was up in Scotland doing my BASI courses. Mm-hmm. When I did my BASI 2 back in 83. And whilst I was up in Scotland, he said, look, if you ever wanted to work in Andorra, he said, give me a call. Of course, you can't get hold of it. There was no mobile phones, and you can't just pick up the phone to somebody. Yeah. And my first question to him was, where's Andorra? I thought it was a ski resort. I didn't realise it was a country. And so I went to the ski show, saw John, and I said, look, is that job still open? He said, yeah, of course. Meet Tim Rosenberg. I said, oh, hi, Tim, how are you? He said, well, I can give you a lift. I said, a lift to where? He said, to Andorra.
Amazing.
And I'm 16 at this time, 17 just. And I said, okay. So my father, because I couldn't drive, obviously, at the time, my father took me to his house in Kings Road. Mm-hmm. We jumped in his Allegro with a square steering wheel, and 20 hours later, we finished up in Andorra. Amazing. And to the start of the season. And I spent the first 3 weeks living on someone's couch because I had nowhere to stay. I just knew nothing, absolutely nothing, because I'd been living at home and obviously well looked after by my folks. Yes. I thought everything would be done for me. No, little did I know that, cooking, washing, and all those sort of normal things that you're meant to do.
It's funny, actually. We had a ski instructor with us this year. I normally employ guys with a slightly older age profile, but I took the opportunity this year to reduce slightly the age of my team. And one of the guys, bless him, Ryan. Hi, Ryan, if you're there. He's only 21, and he's like really, wet behind the ears, can't cook, can't look after himself, can't clean. Like, it was a real sort of throwback to being that age, when you couldn't do anything. It was so funny. And everyone just took the entire season, just taking the mickey out of this guy, because he was just sort of, living on frozen pizza and waiting for people to come out and do his washing for him. It's hilarious.
Absolutely. I think my staple diet was Mars bars and orange juice. It was ridiculous, But that's where I met some lifelong friends. And that was my first season, I think, was 83. And the ski school was quite small at the time. And John Pickett was the technical director. And I think I couldn't have asked for a better start, really, in my ski career. And then it just sort of tumbled, really, from there. Tumbled in a good way.
Yeah, I say.
I was sponsored by Salomon, fully sponsored by Salomon, so I was involved in their product research. And they sponsored me because I was the youngest in the country with my qualification, so I guess they thought there was a little angle. Mm-hmm. That gave me an opportunity to work in the summertime as well, because it doesn't take anyone with a maths degree to work out that the summers are actually longer than the winters.
Yeah. Well, when they cut your ski season off here in the middle of March, it surely feels like that because normally there's you're counting down the days until the snow comes, but it seems like a long way off right now. There's going to be so many people up at the glaciers in this summer if they open.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope we can all get up there and the snow won't be ruined.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I started to work with Salomon, and that was great. So that gave me an income during the summer. I also worked, there was a couple of months in the middle where I used to work for my grandfather's construction company. Just anything really to make ends meet. I never did a season in the Southern Hemisphere, although I had lots of opportunity. And I think working in the ski school in Andorra, in Soldeo in Andorra, gave us a lot of opportunity. If you had that on your CV, certainly back in the 80s and early 90s, it really was a passport to actually work anywhere because it was such a high regarded ski school.
Oh, that's great.
The amount of trainers that were working in the ski school that you could just turn to talk to help.
Yeah.
Even if it was simple things like ski tuning, we learned how to tune our skis properly because there was always somebody in the ski school that had been in the industry longer than you. And it was a real magnet for good skiers because it was actually a ski school working overseas with British speaking and obviously Spanish and Catalan and French speaking people. It was a real magnet for the guys from Australia, New Zealand, some Americans, Argentinians, of course, used to come over in the European winter season. And it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It wasn't like going to work, to be honest. It was great. Of course, I started to drive over there, took my car over there for the first season. I just remember, certainly when Joe mentioned how cheap everything was over there. I remember actually a friend of mine said, we're going to get cold over the next few days. Make sure you got some really good washer fluid in your car to clean your glass and antifreeze. I went, yeah, okay, no problem. He said, I use gin. And I said, what? He said, it's cheaper than the antifreeze from your water bottle than the antifreeze at the garage. And I went, you're joking. So sure enough, I went to the supermarket and bought a 2-litre bottle of gin for about, at the time, about 90p.
Yeah.
500 pesetas or something. And I just remember filling up a water bottle fluid with gin. And every time you would get to the border, you would just, you would just squirt the washer and then this waft of gin would come over the car. And of course, they thought you'd been drinking. And they cleaned the glass really well, actually, and it was cheaper than what you would buy in the fuel station. So,
well, I live here in Switzerland. They're filling the washer fluid for the car is actually super expensive. I might investigate that as an option here.
And that was, I think, the tone of Andorra. I mean, I didn't go there as a ski bum or anything like that. I was there as an instructor, and I really wanted to progress with my career, and that's where I spent really about 7 ski seasons. Eventually took my level 4 and my race trainer's qualification in sort of 87, 88. I became a trainer shortly after that for BASI. I did a season in France for Ali Ross, who was great. He was a great mentor. I worked for him in sort of 88, 89. And shortly after that, I was lucky enough to be asked to be the technique editor for Ski Survey magazine, which is now Ski and Board. And that was great. I was the editor there for 5 years. And during that time, I was also picked up a sponsorship from Saab, who were very involved in, they wanted to be more involved in winter sport. Sorry, there's a plane that's just gone overhead. I haven't heard a plane for about a month.
You're running outside your house pointing at it like a
strange object in the sky.
Yeah. Well, we the fighter jet boys are still. You've been in Switzerland, I guess, enough. They fly fighter jets quite often around here. So that's the only air traffic we're seeing. Although there has been for the last 2 days an absolutely enormous helicopter in our valley, which starts at 8 in the morning and just seems to be able to stay aloft pretty much for the whole day. So he's moving trees backwards and forwards. They're still clearing out all of the trees from the massive storms that we had in November that knocked down a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow, they're still clearing from that.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I think they're taking the opportunity to clean up the forest as well while they're at it. So they're sort of chopping down stuff that's dead or has fallen. So yeah, that's the only air traffic that's going backwards and forwards around here is fighter jets and big helicopters.
A bit more exciting than the 73s.
Yeah, well, it's true. So after that, you were doing a bit of sort of trainer work for BASI, because your life then took you in a slightly different direction.
I actually did a lot of work for BASI. I mean, I would do at least sort of a dozen weeks a season because I wasn't based in any particular resort.
Yeah.
I had my own ski business, teaching private clients called Alpine McCannix, which I still have.
Yeah.
I was skiing with customers in Colorado. I spent a lot of time in Colorado in different resorts.
Mm-hmm.
I finished up being based in doing most of my time in Telluride, which is still my favorite place on the planet.
Okay.
Fortunately, I was at an event skiing with Franz Klammer, not to name drop, but he's
a hell of a name drop.
I skied with him quite a bit. He's actually based in Telluride.
Is he?
Yeah, he's got a lodge there. He's based over there when he spends time in the US. Huh. So we often swap groups when we're over there, which is quite funny. Because my group often say, wow, we're skiing with Franz Klammer, and his groups often say to Franz, who's this English bloke that we're skiing? Don't worry, it's only 2 runs, just bet us. He actually spoke to Telluride whilst we were at an event in Crested Butte, and he said, look, if you want an introduction, just let me know. I said, I'd love one. 24 hours later, I was at the marketing office in Telluride. Fortunately, they were also sponsored by Saab as a resort, so that opened a few doors that otherwise wouldn't. I ran a program there for quite a few years, and it's still, the staff are great over there, and as a resort, it's been fantastic. Aspen has also been a top favourite of mine as well. Slightly different regulations when you work in, or try and work in the US, because you're skiing on private land. You have to. It doesn't matter your qualification. Obviously, you need a qualification, but it doesn't matter too much. So you have to liaise very closely with the ski school and often the marketing department to make sure that you are legally allowed to be on their land. Otherwise, you get charged for trespassing.
Yes,
it's quite a different program.
Yeah, different model.
So it's. I then started to do some of the photo shoots for the magazine. Utilizing the Colorado ski areas as well. So we used to do all the photographing for the Technique articles at the end of the season. So I used to go back out about sort of April time, something like that. Get some new equipment. I used to ski for Mark Unack, doing a lot of ski photo shoots. Get some equipment from him, clothing, etc. So there was a nice collaboration between clothing, equipment, and new products in a ski magazine. Photographs always date very quickly.
Yeah.
So if you could get the latest equipment, the newest ski suit, bearing in mind when the article would come out. So we used to spend a lot of time getting the right kit, making sure that the images were time specific, not using some old image of somebody or an old ski suit or old equipment. So that was great fun, actually. That lasted 5 years. And then sort of during that period, with my work with Saab, I got more and more connected with the automotive industry. So that, again, takes up the majority of my year now. I guess I'm only coaching about 2 to 4 weeks a year. Yeah, I'm no longer a trainer. I hung up the trainer's hat this year in January.
Okay.
And that's, I thought, 20 years as a trainer, 25 years of a trainer was about enough.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been teaching for 38 years, so
maybe
it's been a while.
Yeah, a little bit of a break. Well, thanks for the I mean, there's a lot to fit in, but to summarise it for in that way is fantastic. Now, I think what we're going to get the most value out of probably is to talk about teaching and technique, and I'd love if we've got time to touch on the boot fitting work that you do as well.
Of course, yeah.
Because those are the kind of the three things that I think everyone's going to be the most interested in. Now, when I'm gonna tell you the two things that really stood out from that level 3 technical exam that we did, the three things that have stuck in my mind and still stick to this day, and I still teach to this day. Those things, they say the best teachers are the greatest thieves. So I've stolen these two things shamelessly from you. But
we shipped them.
But we talked about two things, and we'll use these two, and if we find any others, then we'll talk about them. But one of them I thought was especially clever, which was when you've got clients in a snowplow turning situation, so they can turn, and we've all had that client that's got the sort of the stiff inside leg or stiff legs in general.
Yeah.
And you kind of went through a very clever thing which talked about the biomechanics or the mechanics of how the hip joint itself actually works. It's a hinge joint in effect. And the problem is that if it is braced or stiff, and I hope that I've remembered this right, otherwise I've been teaching it wrongly for the last 10 years. But as you close that joint, it also allows it to rotate. So if you are putting some movement in that hip joint as you're going around the turn in a snowplow turn, it allows the inside ski to be able to flatten off and rotate, so that it's a sort of shortcut to a plow parallel, or almost more like a parallel environment. And you see it often with snowplow skiers, that sort of stiffness that means that they're never going to be able to get the skis to match, because the inside tail of the rear tail, inside tail of the inside ski is sort of, it's hooked up in the snow because there's no flexibility within that hip joint. Do you want to expand on that or other similar things to that? I assume I've got it right. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think what triggered the thought process, I know Joe Beer mentioned it. We were both lucky enough to be part of the demo team in Japan and back in '95. And when you're standing there at the bottom of the slope looking at 37 other nations doing snowplows for their country. And I was lucky enough to represent Great Britain in snowplows, which is one of my better achievements, I think.
I'd say, that's right up there.
Myself and Sue Dixon did snowplows for Great Britain. It was, when you look at other countries perform their snowplows, and when you look at other countries perform all of their demos, there is a difference, and the difference is in the movement. And I think what triggered the majority of my thoughts were skiing on different surfaces. So if we're skiing on an artificial ski slope, like when I say artificial, I don't mean a snow dome, I mean bristles. The bottom of the slope on bristles is probably around about 15 degrees. It's really steep, 15 to 20 degrees. If it's any flatter, you won't slide.
Yeah. That's
most
more resistant.
Snow domes are around somewhere between about 9 and 13 degrees. Now, 9 and 13 degrees in a ski resort is generally a blue run. Now, when we coach, when we teach, when we present ploughing, which is the first sort of way of changing direction, we're generally on a slope that's about 3 or 4 degrees. Now, if you can plough really easily in the fall line when you're going straight down the hill, and that's because both feet are the same height.
Yes.
When you change direction, so imagine now that you're turning left, which tends to be most people's favourite turn because they're right foot biased. When you're turning left, your left foot increases in height in relation to the lower foot. So if you measure the distance in angle between those 2 feet, because you are effectively skiing pigeon-toed, which is completely against the way that we're designed.
Yes.
And when you rotate the legs, and I'm going to say legs, not feet here, because it's really difficult just to rotate the feet. It feels like you're rotating the feet because that's the first point of contact that you can feel through the snow. But you're actually rotating everything. And there's not much rotation if you really measure how much angle there is. Your legs, your hips can only flex and move so much with that rotation. So when you're skiing in the fall line, when you change direction, you should flex and increase the amount that the hip closes as you turn. Most people don't, hence the blockage. Blockage creates the catching of the tail of the ski on the left.
Yes.
The distance of those skis in angle, you try it now if you want to. I mean, if you were to stand on something about the same size as a shoebox with your feet shoulder width apart and then turn your feet in, if you were to try and lift that inside foot a little bit more, it gets blocked. If you put that foot parallel, it releases the hip joint. So what I'm saying is that exercise is brilliant, but only relevant if you've got a slope that's steeper than 5 degrees.
Because on a slope that's around 5 degrees, it's perfectly feasible just to have a really static slope.
Absolutely.
And just kind of point it where you want to go.
Absolutely. And this is where, because of the foot height difference, it's the ability for the body to move. So I'm a true believer of not just picking the correct technique for the skier of where they are in the learning phase, but making sure that they're on the right slope. And so many people judge their skiing by the colour of the slope and the speed that they ski at, which is obviously our own nightmare.
Well, do you know, it's a lot of people get really hung up on that because I think it gives them a measure of kind of their, well, one, achievement, or two, what they should be scared of or what not to be scared of. I don't even talk about it. For me, it's either it's steep or it's not steep. I don't, if a kid asks me or an adult asks me, I actually don't know what gradient this slope is. No idea. It's either steep or it's not steep. And we adapt. We either turn more or we don't need to turn as much.
But your movement pattern should match the slope angle. Yes. And if you don't, you're fighting with physics. And guess what? Physics is going to win. Always. Yeah. And so that movement pattern has really struck me. If I was delivering a course on a snow dome, for instance, where the lower slopes are generally they're above 5 degrees. We know that they're between 9 and 11, as I mentioned. Teaching a snowplow beyond, let's say, half a turn, so you're not completing the turn, you're doing half a turn. Anything more than that, where your foot height difference changes, you have to change your technique. Otherwise, the inside leg will get blocked and it will get caught. Not maybe, it will. So the point of matching the skis to a parallel has to be sooner within the arc than if the slope was flatter. I was involved in the ski slope design for the slope that was due to be opened here in Weston-super-Mare. And I gave the architects a bit of a nightmare because I dare suggest that the beginner slope at the bottom was no more than 5 degrees, and they asked me why, and I gave them a sort of physical and biomechanical reason why. And they just looked at me and said, well, I think you've just cost us about £2 million to redesign the bottom of the slope.
It's difficult, right? We have this issue in one of the resorts that locally here in the Porte du Soleil. We have a bit of a what we do is we take our clients according to kind of their ability to different places, so we're not fixed in one place. Now, it just so happens that Morjan's got an amazing magic carpet and a tiny, a really, really good slope for doing that initial gliding snowplow on. Yeah. But after that, it all gets steep and weird and off camber. Yes. And, halfway down the sort of what you'd call slope 2, there's a big dip. So, you're actually accelerating even more as you go towards the lift queue. And then the other one, you've got to kind of ski a special line. Otherwise, you end up down something really, really steep. So that place is a bit of a nightmare. You go over to Le Creuset. That's got a rope toe. No one likes the rope toe, but the slope itself is perfect. A perfect pitch. You go to Champery. There's no beginner facilities there. There's some cool stuff in Villa, for example, but again, you know, a lot of off camber stuff, and there's a lot of kind of steeper stuff hidden in what should be a sort of fairly even beginner slope. You know, and it is tricky. You know, and they say if you learn to ski in Morjan, you really, really learn to ski because everything's steep pretty much after slope 1.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it... but I imagine every resort has its challenges in that respect.
Yeah, I must admit, that's where we were really blessed working in Soldeo and Andorra because of the transition. You could ski for 3 or 4 miles on one of the flattest green runs. It was wonderful. You could get people moving and get them used to the forces that are built up within a turn.
Yeah.
And I think when people feel those forces, they tend to react a little bit more naturally. The sliding is important. We talk about riding bicycles, but I think when people talk about edging skills and rotary skills and all sorts of skills, when you're riding a bicycle, nobody ever tells you how much you should lean the bicycle over, or like yourself when you ride a motorbike. Nobody tells you how much you should lean the bike over. No. You just do it instinctively, and you're reacting against the forces. And this is one of my bugbears of when people start to teach edging skills too early, when they haven't got the speed to support the lateral movement.
Yes.
They're artificially edging. And the minute you start to introduce artificial edging, rather than a reaction edge, they're creating an action and a fixed shape. When you start to create that, you're on the road to nowhere because you're creating blockages.
Yeah.
And people talk about positions, and there's no such thing as a ski position in my language. It doesn't exist because balance in motion is constant movement.
Yes.
Constantly moving. And if you're not, guess what? You're out of balance.
Yeah.
And if you stand still, you're out of balance. If you lean forward, you're out of balance. Like Joe mentioned, it was, leaning forward is hilarious because most people say lean forward because guess what? You're leaning back.
Yeah.
They don't mean lean forward, they mean stay centered and balanced. But you still hear a lot of people to say press on your toe, etc.
Yeah,
get the foot.
Get your stuff forward. There's more to it than that, isn't there? And I think everyone who knows their stuff knows that we're not really talking about leaning forward, but you do hear it. You hear it often. When you hang around a beginner slope often enough, you hear it. This constant thing about being forward. But skiing is a sort of dynamic balance sport, and a lot of it is reactive, but then a lot of it is just trying to stay above your feet, right? Well,
I remember my first couple of lessons I taught, and in the ski school in Andorra, not only was I fairly concerned, but I had quite a bit of practice teaching. I don't mean that rude to the clients I had at the time, but I had some experience, shall we say, teaching at Pontypool Ski Slope as a kid, on the weekends and things. So I was fairly confident, I felt, although only about 17. But at the same time, I've met some clients, and I know some clients now that I first taught in my first seasons in Andorra. I've apologised to them in recent years because I said, I'm so sorry. I spent all those years asking you to lean forward and get on your edges and put your hip into the slope.
Yeah.
They've forgiven me. But I think if you've got regular clients, I've got one client, he's become a close friend actually, in particular, when I was working by myself, every ski trip this gentleman used to go on, and I won't mention his name, every ski trip I was with him. So I used to ski with him probably about 6 weeks a year, all over the world. Switzerland, France, Colorado, all over. And one day I actually had to say to him, look, I'm really sorry, but you just need to go skiing. You cannot make a decision without me being there.
Yeah.
He got to tuition overload, so he was the opposite end. He couldn't decide at the top of a chairlift whether he wanted to go left or right.
Yeah.
At that stage. He was in a position with his work that he didn't want to think, but it's a sport. And I said, look, you need to go skiing. You need to go and play and remember why you started the sport in the first place.
Well, and make mistakes, right?
Like that.
And make mistakes. I see this with my daughter growing up at the moment, and there's a real kind of push and pull between, being a protective parent, looking after the kind of well-being of your kid, but also to a certain extent, you've got to let them go. You have to allow them to go and take risks, because otherwise they don't learn. They don't learn consequences to risk or that kind of thing. You can't live in a risk-free world like that. You can't have a guide to take you through your whole life.
No, and I look at our job as, obviously, is taking it seriously. We're mechanics, all of us, but most people don't take their cars to get serviced or looked after enough. If more people went to a recognised ski school or ski instructor more often, just once a year or once every, it doesn't have to be for a whole week, just can be for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
If people just went to someone, the mountains would be safer, everyone would be better. But most people just drive around in a car, never even check the tyre pressure or oil, and wait until that red light comes on. And that's the majority of the skiers. They just go skiing. But we were to give them a little bit of information now and again, everyone would be skiing better, everyone would be more responsible. And guess what? They'd have more fun because they'd enjoy themselves.
No, it's true. It's true. I want to take you back to something that you just said a second ago about alignment of the toes in, or the way that you hold your feet in a snowplow.
Yes.
So very. It just struck a chord with me, because there's a ski school in Villa, and it's not the red guys, it's the other guys, the blue and yellow guys. I think it's called Villa Ski School. You've probably seen them because you did some stuff in Villa. You told me yesterday.
Yes.
And those guys still use an old technique where they don't have the snowplow in their system. They teach everyone to parallel straight away. So what they do is they start all the kids off, or adults even, on really, really small skis. And they get them doing sort of step turns or turns, step turns to the hill, or whatever you call them, turns of 1,000 steps, whatever. And then they gradually get people used to, on smaller skis, which I guess have a pivot point which is easier to find than on a big long ski. And they get them going on very shallow slopes, and they just completely miss out that sort of snowplow section.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that, I don't particularly think, I've seen the way they teach and it doesn't seem hugely popular, but I don't know whether it has that much merit or not. But you did just say to me that having your toes kind of pointing towards each other and using that as a method to balance isn't necessarily the best way it could be done, or isn't necessarily natural. I wonder if those guys are onto something.
Tension in the top of the leg and the top of the femur within the hip joint, where your biggest muscle groups are. It does create an awful lot of tension, but I think everything in moderation. Using the plough is a really good tool, unless the plough angle is too big and the slope angle is too steep.
Yeah.
Or, interestingly, when we've been in attendance with various interskis, and I've been lucky enough to go from, I've done 20 years of interski congresses and been at 6 various congresses around the world, you see different people doing different types of snowplow. And I've connected there seems to be a connection between how people describe a snowplow against the equipment that they're wearing.
Okay. Tell me more.
So, for instance, the Italians, or I'm not sure if they do now this year, so excuse me if I got this wrong, but they certainly did talk about a snowplow as in pushing out the tails of the skis.
Okay.
Now, the majority of the trainers were on, and I'm not here to talk about bad products of different companies, I'm just going to say the products that they were using created such a heavy ramp angle within the equipment, their natural start position was very toe heavy.
I see. So
if you're standing on, if you've got a lot of pressure on the toes or the ball of your foot, you've got a certain angle of the lower back and a certain posture which is slightly low or lower than the average, let's say. That posture means that you will push out the tails of your skis because your equipment makes you start in that position.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So the relationship.
Ramp angle is a whole nother thing, isn't it? I met Joe a few years ago, and he was on a quest to be at a zero angle between the toe binding and the heel binding. But unless you go and measure it with business cards and stuff like that, which I don't even know if I'm, one of the only people who actually cares about this sort of stuff. But it's very, very difficult to ski if you've got a ramp angle of anything more than about, I don't know, 4 mil, because you just got your butt sticking up in the air.
Totally, and it's boot length specific as well. So, for instance, if you've got a very long boot in terms of millimeters, let's say you've got a boot of 28, 29, that height in the heel is less of a problem than what it would be if you had, let's say, a 23 or a 22 boot.
Oh, really?
Because if you move those two distances together, the angle gets steeper.
Okay.
So you can do a little experiment.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. I'm with you.
If you put your finger underneath the end of a 12-inch ruler, or 30 centimeters, and run that, pull your fingers together, and then your ruler gets steeper.
Yeah.
So not only is what's known on your bindings is a delta angle, some manufacturers are extreme. The biggest I've measured, apart from touring bindings, which are another kettle of fish, the biggest I've measured was 7 millimeters difference.
Wow.
And it extreme.
And they often do that with female bindings. For some, I've heard that female-specific bindings, because they carry more weight in the pelvis in general.
That whole thing, I see as many different shapes in men as I do in women. So if you look at World Cup equipment of all the World Cup ski racers, guess what? That equipment is tuned to that individual.
Oh,
just because they were a World Cup ski racer doesn't mean to say that you have a setting for females and a setting for males. Okay, they have different ski lengths because of their categories, but there's no different settings between the men's and the women's. It doesn't exist.
Isn't it the case though that they would look to be more? Well, this is a real tangent we're going off on. Isn't it in the case that they would want to be more flat because they don't need that extra push forward?
Well, it depends on the discipline, whether they're doing slalom, giant slalom, because all of those different disciplines have got different setups,
right,
for a start, and it depends on their boot size, and it depends on the manufacturer of their equipment.
Ooh.
And I know for a fact that one of our British ski racers, when he was in the Olympics, you won't mind me saying Alan Baxter, when he was racing, he had a plate underneath the toe piece of his binding to level out his bindings for slalom.
So he wanted to be more flat for slalom.
He wanted to be flat for slalom, but that was for him. That was for his height. Bearing in mind, you've got to look at femur length, tip fib length.
Yeah.
You've got to look at boot size. You've got to look at the internal ramp angle, the external ramp angle, and the delta ramp angle. So there's all of this accumulation of angles. And Joe Beer will probably tell you he was suffering from knee pains with a shearing force of the knee for many, many years. And the weeks that I've spent skiing with him, I said, come on, let's grab a couple of piece maps. And he said, well, why do we need piece maps? I know where we're going. And I said, just put these wedge them under the toe piece, between the toe, and just ski down this run gently. And he will say that his knee pain went within a couple of minutes after it for months.
Well, I'm going to as soon as the flights open back up, I'm gonna come and see you for just to have a look at my boots and stuff like that. We talked about this on a previous episode, I think, with Ed, and I've got quite a sort of guru-y guy who's based near Geneva, a guy called Mark Fester, and he's super. He's been really, really good in terms of sort of making my boots comfortable for the first time in about 5 years. But I'm always looking for the next level, and I've got, personally, I'm extremely flexible in my ankle joint, which creates it sort of creates quite an upright back. If you can imagine, probably, well, it does. That's my experience of it. So a lot of my flexion comes through my ankles because I'm able to do that, but I also need a boot that supports that motion. But what it does is it creates quite an upright back angle. So I don't, I say to people, like, don't look to ski like me. This is just the way that my body works,
Well, you've hit the nail on the head, because when I work with Colin Martin at Solutions for Feet, so all of my tools and everything are there.
Yeah. Hello, Colin, by the way. The man's a genius.
Yeah. It means that I don't have to because we sell, or he sells boots from the shop, and I just do the fittings. And a balancing fitting will probably take a couple of hours after the fitting. So he does all the fitting. And what I like about his work, we've worked together for many, many years. We've known each other over 25 years. He's a craftsman. He will choose what's right for you. And with the balancing that I do, every boot, it changes. So let's say you're on a Salomon boot or a head boot, and you've been on that product for years. You can guarantee after 2 or 3 years, the angles of that boot change. So I've been sponsored, and I still am sponsored by Salomon for sort of 35 years. They still provide me with equipment. Thank you, Salomon. And this year's boot was a completely different geometry than last year's boot.
Oh, really?
Totally different. And that's the race department boot, not the one that you would normally buy off the shelf.
That's interesting, because when I went to see Mark out here, he said to me that this year, because I took him this year's Head Raptor, which I ski in a Head Raptor because it gives me that support and the forward lean angle that matches my ankle. But he said to me they changed the geometry. No, not geometry. He said they've changed the dimensions somewhere through the ankle on that boot this year, which is new. But they'd left it alone for the last 3 years or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you may find that you are on a product for years and years, and then all of a sudden you've got to change brands because another brand is a better shape for your foot. Because your feet really don't change shape that much. Even if you've had people that have had even knee surgeries come to me and say, I've had a knee injury, I've had surgery, I want my boots balanced again. I said, funny enough, guess what? Your foot's exactly the same, because you haven't injured your foot, you've injured your knee.
No, that's right. And to be fair, when I put these new boots to him, he took the old notes that he'd taken on the previous visit 2 years ago, and he just, did all of his magic on the boot, and all of a sudden it fits. It's like, your foot hasn't changed. There's nothing's changed here. What you need is a proper bed in there, and then they changed. This year they changed the zip fit liner, which I use, which is a bit annoying, but it's actually turned out to be okay. But it's
even Ben Coomer that created the zip fit, I've spent some time with him in Aspen. He managed to get me a zip fit with no filling in it at all, so I could inject my own filling.
Oh wow!
Because I've got such a close fitting boot. But you can imagine this scenario. You've got a footbed, you've got your boot, and you're in the ski shop. Everything's feeling great. When you put your skis on, all of those angles could change, but nobody measures those angles.
No, yeah, it's true. It's 100% true, right? Yeah,
and that's one of the key things that I check when people come for a fitting, because it's not just called boot fitting, it's boot balancing. It's balancing the equipment for your body shape. And the difference 1 or 2 millimeters in one part of the foot can make at the top of your head is unbelievable.
Oh, it is, because I went down the road after Joe told me about that knee thing that he had and flattening off the angle. I actually went and did that. So I put a plate underneath I was in a Tyrolia binding, which I think has a 4 mil difference. It used to.
That model, it does, yeah.
Yeah, and so I took it. I then took it down to 2 with a plate, and I just couldn't get, for whatever reason, it pitched me too far back, probably to do my ankles, and I just couldn't get over the front of the ski, so I gave up that experiment, and I went back to it just being stock. But it was incredible, the difference that it made. Really incredible.
Well, it may mean that your boot was correct, but the binding wasn't, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's, if you start sort of, it's like a recipe, isn't it? If you start with the foundation being completely different, the end taste is very, very different. And that's what happens when people say, well, I've been trying this and I've been trying that. It's like, it's a domino effect of problems that you're opening up a can of worms.
It is,
And
the
I love
worst.
it when people come to me and just say, "Look, just do your best." I said, "Well, I always do my best. I'm never going to let you out of the shop
Yeah.
until." And often we find that people are in the wrong boot, and we're not going to try and make good of bad. And I will never suggest to somebody to change their boots if they can, let's say, keep their old boots. I'm
Yes.
one for keeping old equipment, not getting rid of it if it works. And the key thing is, a lot of people are skiing with poles that are too short as well.
Well,
This is a whole nother thing, you know.
I'm going to put that in the current trends in higher end skiing section, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Short poles.
But I've been very, very lucky to work with some of the world's best boot technicians. When I was working with Salomon, I actually worked on boot design. I know there's been some good boots and bad boots from every manufacturer, but even looking at the plastics, where the plastics come from and the different colors of plastic and how they affect the flex. And it's incredible because the pigments do affect the flex, and they get affected by UV light, and they get brittle and hard and stiff. So some boots get stiffer than others in different temperatures, and it goes on and on and on and on, and it's quite incredible. And boot flex indication is just a mere number on the side.
Well, yes, yeah, that's
and
true.
And a lot of people look at that number as a level of their skiability.
Yeah, it's just rubbish though. When you know anything about boots, you know that each manufacturer is flex rating completely differs compared to the other.
Well, not only that, you've got to take in board or on board. If you have, as an example, let's say you've got a size 10 foot and you're going to be in, let's say, I don't know, a 27 or a 28 ski boot. Not only is that longer in the clog in the foot section, it's also higher up the leg.
With the associated force coming from the leverage effect, right?
So imagine if you've got a size 10 foot and only, let's say, a 29 or a 28 inside leg, your lever length. So you could be, let's say, for instance, a level 3 BASI ski instructor, very good end ISIA skier.
Yeah.
But if you've got those dimensions, you probably only want about a 100 or a 110 flex boot. But if you have a much smaller foot, with a shorter shaft and a cuff of the boot, you probably want to have a 130 or 140 flex, because you've got a different amount of plastic around your leg, giving you different leverage. And the other problem is that boot could be so high up the leg, it could be interfering with the calf muscle. And the calf muscle is moving within the top of the boot, rather than the cuff of the boot holding you below the calf muscle, where it's more solid and it's closer to the bone.
Why would a big heavy size 10 foot, 95 kilo size 10 foot guy like myself want a lesser flexing boot? Surely they would want more resistance against their leverage power.
No, because you've got more plastic in the boot, so the flex ratio is different.
Oh, I see. So there's more plastic sitting around your ankle and your cuff.
General. It goes higher up the leg. It becomes almost like a leg brace rather than something that's going to hold you below the calf muscle.
Oh, so me not putting those extra bolts in the back of the of the head Raptor has actually been a good thing all these years. I thought I wasn't just strong enough to flex it when it was full of bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, at the end of the season, where it's a lot warmer, it's going to have a completely different flex pattern than early season, or if you've been powder skiing for a couple of hours where your boots go rock solid.
Well, that is true. You do notice that in March. I often go through the front of the cuff in March. You do see
and I think let's look at the ankle as a suspension device, not a boot that you just lean on and try and put pressure on the ski. It's part of your integral suspension. And if you just press on the front of the boot, guess where your weight's going? It's going forward. Guess where that is? Out of balance.
I hope you're enjoying this interview that we did with Andy. I very much enjoyed it myself, especially the chat to do with boots, and I certainly learned a few things in connection with how boots are constructed, and I hope to find out more about that if I get a chance to meet up with Andy this summer. I want to tell you a bit about the podcast. This episode should take us past about 25,000 downloads of this podcast, which is absolutely amazing. I never thought we'd get anywhere near that in what is quite a niche topic. And I would also want to thank a few of you that have got in touch over the past few months, specifically Lucas, Paul, Barbara, Robert, and Bilal. I really, really appreciate you getting in touch, and it's always amazing to hear from people all over the world and just who is listening to this podcast. So thank you for your kind messages. It's really, really good. Barbara was specifically pulling me up on the fact that we haven't interviewed a woman yet, which is actually true, and that's something that is on the cards, and I'm just setting up something like that for the summer. So yeah, maybe that will come off. We will see. In part 2 coming up, we carry on the technical chat, trends in high-end skiing, pole planting, and something called the ski caddie, which I'll leave you to discover in part 2 of the podcast. For the meantime, look after yourselves, everybody, and I will see you. I already have episode 22 in the can, and that's going to be with Tom Waddington, who's the current Alpine director of the British Association of Ski Instructors. I went to Verbier to see him the other week, so that's already in the can. I'll edit that up and that will come out in due course. But for now, yeah, look after yourself, and I will see you on the next one. While we've currently jumped to the far left-hand side of my page, which is under boot fitting. So let's jump back. We talked about poles, and yes, we talked about. I'll take you all the way back to that iconic level 3 session. But you talked really nicely. And it's something that I've found always extremely useful with regards to kind of getting a flow element to your skiing. Which is something that you talked about, which is called Flex Connect. And you talked about as you come around the sort of second half of the turn into the transition, you're generally going to be in a flexed position. Yeah. And if your I don't really want to say hands are in the right place, because that sort of talks about making shapes, but I don't really talk about it. But ideally, if you just have if you're ready, that flex should drop the pole into the snow more or less in exactly the right place for you to make your next turn.
Yes.
So as you come around the second part of the turn, flex, bam, drop the pole in the snow. There it is. No, you don't need any extravagant arm movement if you don't want it. Arms, I always say to my clients, your arm movement or your pole plant is your flair in your skiing. So if you want to make it flowery, do it. If you want to make it functional, do it. I've been experimenting with how my hand arrives. Well, last season, actually, I've noticed that if my hand arrives in a certain place, the gesture that I make with my wrist, just my wrist, the actual direction that I push my wrist in, can actually help my body go over the transition into the next turn. Mm-hmm. And you see that a lot, I think, with the Swiss guys. You know how they sort of have that arm that comes inside and then goes back out again, like they're opening a door. Well, actually, what that does is that creates a sort of quite a big toppling effect, which you see quite a lot of the top of their turn. But anyway, do you want to expand on Flex Connect?
I'm always keen on matching pole swing speed with flex speed.
Oh, now we're talking. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I
bet you're going to talk about pole. Go on, sorry, I'm talking over you. Go on, carry
on. If they're matched, you're going to stay in balance. So, as an example, a short radius turn down the fall line on a relatively, let's say, a blue-red run. Nothing too challenging. You're not going to be turning too much, but your pole swing, your pole plant is going to control your rotation. You're not turning very much. You've got the opportunity to do very fast flexing and quite a short, sharp pole swing. I would coach that, for instance, if you're looking at introducing moguls, because if you look at mogul skiers, they're not turning very much. They're going almost down the fall line. Yeah. The key thing in moguls is pole swing speed most people focus on the feet.
Yeah.
It's like a sprinter. Sprinters focus so much on their arms. It's crazy. They don't focus on the legs when they start. They focus on their arms. If you focus on your pole swing speed, guess what? Your legs will catch up. If you start turning your feet too quickly, the upper body gets left behind. So matching your flex speed with your swing speed, you'll know, for instance, if you're doing a longer turn that you want a pole swing or pole plant, because you don't always need to pole plant. It's subjective to where you are, what you're doing. If you're doing a longer turn, which you could be going slower or you could be going faster, match your swing to your turn shape and your skiing speed. Simple.
Now,
really, really simple.
Now, I've been experimenting with this quite a lot, and I've settled on a pole that I really, really like, and it's the Compodel Carbon GS pole, the straight one. And that, for me, has a beautiful, beautiful swing weight.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is hugely important as well. You see a lot of people kind of skiing around with big, heavy poles with a big basket on the end. And that also affects the speed at which you're able to swing it. But in addition, it creates a whole bunch of extra kind of momentum that can bring your upper body sort of around, if you see what I mean, around in the turn. And for that reason, I kind of like quite a light pole, that almost isn't there, is my preference.
Well, I think there's not only the type of pole that you're using. I use an old Scott Racer pole because it's just aluminium shaft. I race with them, and it's something that I like the feel of. If I'm skiing a lot of steep terrain, I've been lucky enough to ski with some guys like Scott Smith and Seth Morrison, Kim Wright-Kelm, and those guys in Crested Butte during the free skiing championships. When I was fortunate enough to ski with Scott, he not only was he sort of, dare I say, about 65 kilos and rocked up on a pair of 210 Super G K2 skis. This is a while ago.
Well,
he had 135 poles. And I was shocked to see the length of his poles. And I said, why are your poles so long? He said, because the snow's a long way away. I thought, actually, he's right. Of course he's right. He's one of the world's best skiers. But that triggered a thought. When most of us learn how to pole plant for the first time, we're on a relatively flat slope. So the part of the snow that you're connecting with, when we find it beneficial to pole plant, is generally a red run or a black run. It's steeper. Guess what? That pole is further away, and it's effectively, if the pole's too short, you have to flex too much or lean out. Either one of those two is going to compromise your performance. So what I'm suggesting is, if you're always skiing on something quite steep, go for a slightly longer pole to make sure that connection isn't forcing the body to be too low, or you're leaning in or out or in a strange position. So we should change our pole length according to the slopes that you're on and the terrain that you're skiing in.
Well, that's not always possible, though, is it?
No, people talk about telescopic stuff. I mean, I've settled for a pole length. I'd buy a pair of 130s and then cut them down a little bit. I found a 125 for me is a little bit short. But you imagine if you look at a modern ski, you've obviously got the thickness of the ski.
Yeah.
You've got the thickness of the binding. You've often got a plate. Yeah. If you measure the distance between your foot and the snow, it's normally about 5 centimeters.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in the ski shop and people hold that right angle with the elbow and you hold it under the basket, it should be that length plus 5.
It should be, but it never is it?
No, so most people are on a pole that's too short.
No, I personally ski a 130 pole, and I've had a few people say to me they're quite long, but I think it's just right. For me, it's more about where the pole arrives, in space and time. And I personally ski I'm 1 meter 86 which is just about 6'1",
Yeah.
and 130 is about where I want to be, because it's just as I come around the second part of the turn, my hand is in that place, and it's literally just for me, just a case of drop the pole in the snow, and that's kind of, I don't know, that works for me, but it might not work for everybody.
Well, I can guarantee if you were on a very flat beginner's run, they would feel too long.
Oh, and often they do. Yeah, often they.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, since we're on that topic of current trends in higher end skiing, because this is something I want to talk to you about. So, you were part of that sort of Andorra scene. That you saw a lot of good skiers back then. That would have been what, late 80s, 90s.
Yes.
Time.
Yeah.
Now, the skiing's changed a lot since then, and in many ways, and well, this is what I was going to say. In many ways, it hasn't. But current trends in higher end skiing seem to be shorter poles, feet closer together. It's almost like something's gone full circle, actually, in many ways. But what do you make of the start? I imagine you see a fair bit of modern high-end ski instructor skiing, I should say. We're not talking about the World Cup, but what does it look like to you, sort of with a view, with a sort of looking through a lens of the past on it?
I've seen some huge transitions. I think, just as an example, you talked about earlier on of the guys in Vila missing out the plough phase. I was in America when they decided to have a similar type of thing. Remember when Elan introduced the parabolic ski, and it was the very first sort of carving ski. I mean, everything carves, it just needs a bigger mountain. If you've got a straight ski, it will still carve, it just needs a lot more room and more speed. The parabolic ski that Elan introduced some years ago, I think it was sort of in the late 90s, 98, 97, 98. When the Americans introduced that was at a very similar time when the Koreans decided to have a different turn radius for different ski with a different turn radius for different turn shapes. Okay. So, and that was their philosophy. It was a little bit like playing golf, where, if you want to make a short shot, you're on an 8 or a 9 iron or a pitching wedge, etc. Yeah. Or a driver for a longer shot. So they would have a different shape of ski for your different turn shape. And that was how mechanically minded and engineered they were. Yeah. Like we don't have that luxury. Although saying that, this gentleman that I skied with a lot, I used to hire a ski caddie. And the ski caddie was a guy who used to wash dishes in the hotel. And I said, look, would you like to earn yourself some money today? He said, well, what for? I'm just free skiing. Perfect. Can you carry a ski bag around with you? He said, yes. Why? I said, I'd like you to carry 2 pairs of skis and follow us. He said, well, why? Because the client I was skiing in would have 2 different types of skis in that ski bag. I made sure it was a padded ski bag so we could carry it on a jogger. But whenever we got to a certain pitch that suited, dare I say, a giant slalom ski or a ski that's slightly wider for softer snow, we used to stop. He used to change his skis and he used to enjoy that run.
No, come on.
I'm deadly serious. We had a ski caddie that used to follow us around. And if you think about it, if you're on the mountain, all you need is 3 pairs of skis. Yeah. So we had somebody that followed us around the mountain with 2 pairs of skis in the back. So we called him the ski caddie.
Oh my God.
But I mean, it was, who wouldn't want a ski caddie?
I think part of the skill, I don't agree with your friend, but part of the skill is surely adapting, and part of the pleasure of it is making a ski work in conditions where maybe it's not designed to work.
100%, yeah. So it's the challenge. I mean, don't get me wrong. The first time I went heli skiing in the Bugaboos, I turned up with a pair of race department slalom skis, which at the time were probably about 198 in centimeters. Yeah. But nevertheless, they had tip deflectors, and I went powder skiing in the Bugaboos all week.
In fact, a modern day slalom ski is not a bad, as long as you can stay over it and go straight enough. Modern day slalom skis are pretty good powder ski. It's got a big fat shovel, right?
Rather than on it, I must admit, I'm one of those. I like being in it rather than floating above it.
Yeah, me too.
So coming back to the ski caddie, it was a concept. He didn't do it every week. We went skiing. We just did it a couple of days, and he understood the concept. We did eventually go back to one pair of skis, but I think if you are coaching somebody through the sensations, why not? If you are focusing on all-terrain skiing, why not have a ski for their development that's more suitable for all-terrain skiing? Once they've got the movements. So we used it as a training aid. I'm not suggesting you do this every time you go skiing.
Funny. Yeah.
But it worked. And it was this gentleman that I eventually said to him, right, you need to go skiing now. You need to go and play. Mm-hmm. So looking at the different concepts and different shapes of ski, interestingly, when the Americans introduced the technique of almost eliminating ploughing from their teaching progression, their injury rate went through the roof because carving was so high on their agenda, or so early on, if you can imagine it, in people's skiing goal. Yeah. People were learning how to traverse very quickly and get onto their edges very, very early. People lost the ability to skid and to blend the skills in a turn, and they had no speed control.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if you carve everywhere, you're going to be out of control.
For sure. Yeah.
But and it was ridiculous. It was like going down a hill with no brakes on in a car. You were a passenger.
Yeah.
You definitely weren't a pilot. And when you see, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in ski design and ski manufacturing. When you see how wide skis have become now, and the forces, anything wider than a sort of 70, 75 underfoot, the lateral forces that it's putting on the knee joint and the amount of people that are now, when they come for boot fitting, are complaining with knee problems.
Yeah.
It's because of the width of the ski. It puts a completely different geometry on the turn shape because your edges should be under the boot, not outside of the boot.
Well, I've talked to clients about this for ages, and a lot of, clients will turn up for lessons on something that is, plus 80 mil wide.
It's a joke.
And I'm like, well, where do you spend most of your time skiing? Mr. Customer, like, are you that much of a powder hound that you spend plus 80% of your time, skiing? No, you're not. Skiing powder. So no, you're not. So what do you spend most of your time doing? Well, I ski around on the piste with my kids. Well, why have you got these enormous fat skis on? Go get yourself let's nip down the mountain, grab yourself, let's hire a pair of piste specific skis and feel how easy it is to turn them.
Because it's cool.
Well, yeah, I know this. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not good for people's knees. I completely agree with you on that.
And it does make you move in a different way, and it does compromise your performance, without doubt. And we can only suggest to people, but unfortunately, I think when you find most instructors working closely with a ski shop, that's when you get the choice correct. When you're actually getting something that's not okay. If you want to buy something that you can be an all-terrain skier, then great. Go all-terrain skiing, but don't come to me complaining that your parallels are a little bit scrapey or you can't go into the moguls when you've got a ski that was designed to do a completely different job.
Yeah. But we can all feel that, right? I mean, I've got a pair of Dina-style Patrols, I think they are. I don't really have any off-piste skis, to be honest with you. I had some that I really, really liked, and I sold them to a friend, and I regret that. But I have another pair. Which are, I don't know, they're 88, maybe 90 underfoot. They're
okay.
They are very good for one specific thing, which is powder days. Even then, they're not amazing at that. I'd rather be on a piste ski, if I'm honest. But it just doesn't do anything very well.
They just feel clumsy, don't they?
They're awful. You can't get them on an edge. Can't really carve them. You know, they don't work in bumps, like you say. They don't work anywhere. And you know, I'd rather go a bit straighter.
You need a ski caddy.
Yeah, I do ski caddy. I'd rather go a bit straighter. You know, these guys. You were talking earlier about Scott Schmidt, right? One of my all-time great skiers. You know, that film Blizzard of Ours, like, you know, watching, everyone kind of raved about Glenn Plake in that, but Scott Schmidt was the star of the show as far as I was concerned. I mean, what a skier.
Scott Schmidt, and there was another guy called Scott Kennett who actually used to run called Black Diamond clinics in Telluride Ski School, and I attended a couple of his as a guest.
Yeah,
and it's just great to ski with people that just enjoy skiing, that are so untechnique focused, and will tell you, move right, where do you want me to move, just do what you're doing, just a lot more of it.
Well, okay. we should probably mix that in with you know, current trends in high-end skiing, because I see a lot of shapes. You know, I see a lot of people making shapes, but that's one of your things, isn't it? You know, move, have the freedom to be balanced where you need to be balanced at any given time, rather than, oh, well, the manual says I've got to be here, so this is the shape I'm going to make.
I think, interestingly, that was something that I wanted to put across when I was writing as the technique editor for the ski magazine. Most images that we saw in the ski magazine, guess what, was a static image. So working with Mark Unack, we were, I believe, one of the first to create, let's say, one turn made up of 8 different static images.
Oh, like in Ron LeMasters' book. Like, there's a load of those in there. Yeah.
So we started to do that back in the sort of the mid 90s, early 90s. So people could have some form of motion looking at a static image.
Yeah.
And when we think of good skiers, most of us are looking at a static image in a magazine, and it's that static image that gets embedded into people's mind about images and positions and stuff. I mean, it's a shame, but hey, I used to teach that, and as I said, I apologize to dozens of clients. I had to say to them, I'm so sorry I asked you to stand in this weird position that was so unsporty. It was about as sporty as waiting for a bus, you know.
Isn't it? I wonder how many other industries there are like that. Say, for example, you were training to be, I don't know, pull something out the top of my head, a futures trader, right? In the markets, they wouldn't let you do an entry level course and then let you loose in the market themselves, would they? And yet we do that with skiing. We say to a kind of level 1, you know, you've got a level 1 or a level 2, right? Off you go, and there's not much. I've been thinking this for a while. I wonder if there's a way to kind of reinvent the way that we do sort of ski school, you know, maybe with like a sort of apprentice and a master sort of within the same lesson, one watching the other or something. And,
well, I think that was the beauty. Sorry, Dave, I interrupted.
No, carry on. What are you going to say?
That was the beauty of when we used to work in the ski school in Andorra, because unless you were at a particular level or had a certain amount of experience, you had level 1s and 2s, or what we called level 1s and 2s, beginners and someone that's done 1 week of skiing. And you were observed, and you had training, and you had backup, and you had support, and you had friends to talk to. And we, other than talking about the usual dribble at a lunch table, you would be talking about ski technique. And it's fascinating that you're always talking about the same subject, and you would talk about the difficulties that you've got with people in your group, and you would share those problems, and you would get over that problem by talking to people. And I think there's a lot of that is lost now with the structure of how we have to get qualified to a particular level before you can work in a ski school, or before. So you almost have to be good before you start work, where getting good takes experience.
It's true. It's a difficult one, actually, because you kind of, well, how do these guys get it? And one of the places that they seem to, or the guys that I get CVs from, you know, they seem to get it from places like Interski, where, you know, there's a bit of a sausage machine. You go there, you can kind of make your mistakes and your you can make a bunch of hours and experience, experimenting your ideas on groups of kids that are bust out there or whatever. I need to give that some more thought over the summer, because I wonder if there's, what I'm trying to do is change my role within the ski school. I don't know whether it will be possible, post Corona, what sort of economic pressure you're going to be under next year, but I want to change my role to a sort of roving, roving boss man on the mountain. So I don't really want to teach that much anymore. I want to go around the mountain and do sort of what you might call quality assurance, or just sort of
you're a supporting role. You're there to help.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that, I think, might be a really cool thing to kind of generally up the level of teaching in the school. And
Totally.
For these guys, you can pass on some of the stuff. Maybe you can try this, maybe this. I saw you do that. That was really cool. It's a good learning opportunity for everybody, really.
Yeah, and I think if people start to understand, when I was working in a ski school in Andorra, and funny enough, because I'm like a lot of people doing a lot of housework at the moment and tidying up, I actually didn't realise, since being at home, I didn't realise I had the time to work. It's bizarre, but I found a list of notes written, and I counted. I've got 53 different exercises written on that piece of notepaper.
Oh wow!
Now I would try and deliver those in a lesson from Monday to Friday, and I think a lot of us feel as if, unless you're giving your clients, your guests, a lot of information, we're not giving them value, and that's a problem. And I think we can make so much difference to someone skiing if you keep it. I'm not suggesting keep it simple because they're not intelligent, but it's the clarity. And if you just do exactly the same range but change the rate and range of movement, you've got a different outcome. Yeah. You don't have to keep giving people different exercises, different drills. And this is where a lot of, I'm not going to say arguments, but a lot of understanding, I think, between instructors. I'll give you an example. If you're doing a particular exercise, most people call it a name. As an example, a braquage or a cowboy turn, for instance. And if you do a particular cowboy turn or braquage, if you do it slightly different than the person next to you that has done it before, and I'm talking person being fellow instructor here, they say, oh, I don't do my cowboy turns like that. I said, well, all you're really trying to do is look at the skill of skidding, edging, and rotary skills. Now, what about if you didn't call it a name and you just called it developing a skill? Like, stop calling things names, because a javelin turn, for instance, skiing with the front of the skis crossed, there's about 5 different ways of doing that. And nobody, when I was writing for the magazine, I did an article once, I mentioned this the other day to you, I did an article that got more phone calls into the Ski Club of Great Britain than any other, and it was called Useless versus Useful. So what I did, I took 5 classic exercises that you see on the mountain every day of the season. I turned those, what I called useless exercises, into a useful one. And of course, instructors and clients were phoning up the Ski Club of Great Britain and complaining, saying, my instructor that I've been skiing with for 15 years in Austria has been teaching me this since day one. He's brilliant. Why is some guy from Somerset telling me it's now useless? And I give you an example, a javelin turn, for instance. Most people, if you pick up the inside ski and cross it over and make a turn, most people cross the leg that you're standing on, which makes you have a twisted supporting leg, which isn't very good, because that's like skiing in some bizarre snowplow at speed. How about rotating the leg that you're picking up, not the leg that you're standing on? And that turns that exercise into one that's kind on the body. You're not twisting the supporting leg. And what about just lifting the tip of the ski slightly higher than the tail? It keeps you centered. If you keep the tip of the ski low and the tail high, that pushes you forward.
Yeah.
So just those simple adjustments to that classic exercise of a javelin turn makes a huge difference. And that was just one example that I put in the magazine, turning a useless exercise into a useful one. And I did a number of other ones like that. And I found the article the other day, and it was hilarious because that was written back in '94.
Well, I have to take issue. I was lying in bed this morning waiting for everyone to wake up, and I was thinking about your critique that we talked about yesterday about the looking through the window drill, which
absolutely.
I was sitting there thinking he talked about that yesterday, but I use that a lot. But I only use it in certain situations, so I don't teach that as a matter of course. When I use that drill has a specific place. We should explain to the listener. So the looking through the window one is you put your arms out, sort of semi in front of you. You hold your poles vertically off the floor, and you imagine you're looking through the window at, I don't know, a sexy girl or a supermodel or whatever. And the idea is to keep everything square as you're sort of snow ploughing down the beginner slope.
Now, if you do that drill, modify it for a high performance drill, and have your, let's say, your hands or your window that you're looking through above your feet and your skis, it would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Right.
If you're doing that in a medium or short radius turn of people obsessed with facing the body down the mountain, which is the way I was taught how to ski in Austria and France.
Yes.
How about facing the direction of travel? That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and it's a bit more in line with the current equipment these days, isn't it?
Yeah, but your direction of travel isn't always where the skis are going.
No, that's true.
Dude, that's what I mean. You are facing in the direction of travel. So if you are skidding, guess what? You're probably facing in the direction of travel, not the skis.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're carving, I'm going to use the word carving on a medium to long radius turn, you're probably facing in the direction of travel, which in that instance will be the direction of the skis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's the difference. I think when people are teaching, they keep adding stuff on, but they never tell you when to take stuff off.
Yeah. No, I'm glad we're actually on the same page, because I only use that drill really when I've got someone in a. Oh my God, Andy thinks I'm terrible. But when that classic thing where you've got a guy on a beginner slope, a guy or a girl on a beginner slope, and what they do is to try and get their skis to go the way they want to go, they twist their entire upper body in that direction, and it creates that sort of inside leg block that doesn't allow the skis to turn. And they don't know why. That's when I get that drill out, the one with the one with the poles, to kind of square everything up.
I would make a suggestion to that.
Mm.
The reason they're trying to twist is probably because they are concerned that they're starting to travel too fast. So I would do two things.
Yeah.
I would flatten the slope and get them to flex lower.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things will allow the skis to change direction. If you're standing too tall, you can twist easily. And anyone listening to this can try this now if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. If you've got your feet side by side, are roughly hip width apart or shoulder width apart, let's say in a snowplow width, they don't have to be in a snowplow shape. It's dead easy to rotate the upper body.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you flex, but flex not just with the ankles, but more with the hips, bearing in mind that the hips close more than the ankles and knees. If you flex and then try and twist, it reduces that rotation.
Do you know that's true? I'm standing up doing it now. Yeah, that's right.
So your flex height will dramatically increase or reduce the ability to rotate. Mm-hmm. So most people are standing too tall as their start position, giving them the ability to rotate easily. When I say rotate, I mean rotate above the hips.
Yeah.
So what I call spinal rotation. Mm-hmm. That's dead easy. And of course, if you notice that the inside leg or of the inside of the turn is now blocked, but if you flex, it automatically lines the body up.
Yeah.
Automatically. So rather than trying to paint over the crack by holding their body, look at why they've had the ability to turn, and their ability to turn is because they're standing too high. If you make them flex lower,
you take away
they
that.
won't be able to rotate because their body aligns themselves.
It's interesting.
Always look at the cause, I would recommend, rather than just trying to change their shape or change the problem. Look at what's created that problem. And if you keep going back, do you know what? Sometimes their boots could be too big, or it could come down to an equipment related problem that's not their fault.
Yes, yeah.
And I find that in my other industry, when I'm working in the automotive industry, occasionally on the circuit, if I'm asking somebody to rotate the wheel or steer and they've got a blockage in their upper body because their arms are too straight, guess what? Changing their technique isn't going to change it. Changing their driving position will change their technique, not their technique.
Let's jump back. So we got to we got to this point from talking about a ski caddie, and you were talking about Koreans with different things in their quiver for different types of turns. Now, where did all of that stuff lead in terms of sort of technique and what you see now with ski instructor high-end skiing?
I think we've adapted to the equipment that we're skiing on. Last season, last season, not this season, just gone. I skied on an old pair of my skis, and I couldn't do the same movements as I do on a modern ski.
Okay.
It's simple. It's not that the technique has evolved. We are just changing our movement pattern according to what's on our feet. You mentioned earlier on when you're skiing on an off-piste ski. If you ski on that big, fat off-piste ski that's designed for soft snow, if you ski on that on the piste, you have to make different movements.
Yeah.
If you ski on a slalom ski, you have to make different movements. And I don't think there's enough focus on changing movement patterns to match the equipment in ski techniques.
Yeah.
It's really simple. You ski to what you're wearing, not to what it says in the book. And that's the change. I think we've all adapted according to the equipment. 25 years ago, we were all skiing, well, most of the instructors I knew were skiing on Rossignol 4S's. They were the benchmark, the minty green ski. They were amazing. Or K2 KVC, but they were the benchmark skis at the time. I've still got mine, and that's the ones that I skied on. Whenever we were skiing on those skis, we were hunting for edge grip. All of our techniques was biased around gripping and edging and angulating and edging like crazy and pressure. Edge, pressure, and angulation were the three key things that you would teach to a high-end group. Guess what? Manufacturers started to make skis in racing that would grip easier, that would carve better, and would make a nice arc. Yeah. We automatically had carving given to us and edging given to us by the equipment. So everyone got obsessed with edging and carving. The skill that they forgot was how to skid.
Yeah.
Everyone forgot how to skid. So I've been skiing in Verbier, and then everyone is flat out down the slope in a straight line, and they've got full-on body armor. Denesi. They look like they're in a motocross competition, not going skiing.
Welcome to Verbier. Yeah.
And people are getting hit because you've got these people on this kit that are just going flat out. And I'm not suggesting it's just in that resort by no means, but you've got people on the wrong kit, and they're running before they can walk. But the equipment is making you do certain movements, and if you were to put certain people on different equipment, they would make certain movements much, much easier. And the body hasn't changed shape over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And if you look at some old videos of racers, giant slalom skiers in particular, I think it's easier to observe GS skiers because the movements are a bit slower.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to watch giant slalom and supergiant because of their movements. Their movements aren't dissimilar to what today's skiers are making. Because the turn radius isn't quite so far apart. Slalom's very different because the skis are quite different.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee if you put on a pair of slalom skis, you would make the same movements and it would look the same as Ingemar Stenmark. Well, I know I wouldn't look like Ingemar Stenmark, but it would look very, very similar to a lot of those skiers. And I think looking through the decades, skiing was a fashionable sport. When I started to learn how to ski, it was very much about looking good before you could ski well. The Austrians, the French, and the Italians, and I think the Italians now, they still don't have mogul skiing in their, or all-terrain skiing in their ski instructor syllabus. They want you to ski well and they want you to look good. Yeah. And it's part of their philosophy, part of their lifestyle.
It's cultural, right? Yeah, looking good is cultural in Italy for sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, hats off to them. Fair play. They do immaculate grooming and it looks great. And it's part of their culture, like you said. And I think where the fashion of the ski industry has a transition into a sport, that's where ski instruction has been caught up. Where, and there's still, when I go to Aspen, you know, you've got somebody with a pair of skis on their shoulder, a matching ski suit, and possibly a matching dog. Joking aside, it does happen. And you can tell, you think they've got a pair of skis on their shoulder, but guess what? They're not wearing ski boots. Yeah. They're just sitting outside of the cafe watching people ski with a pair of skis sitting next to them, but then no intention of going skiing at all. But they just look good. And you try telling those people that skiing is a sport. It's a lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think no matter who we are coaching, as long as they want to learn and as long as they want to be a little bit open-minded rather than turning up on a lesson, and you must get this, teaching people that don't want to learn, they're there because they have to be, rather than because they want to be. And that's why I used to really enjoy all the BASI courses, because people doing exams and people training to exams have got a reason to be there. They really want to learn how to change.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a different mentality. People on holiday are just there and they go, okay, they expect we have a magic wand and wave the magic wand and we become great. And how many people have you had, Dave, where people have said, I want to learn how to ski moguls? And you go, okay, fantastic. Let's just have a little run down here to see where you're at.
Yes.
And you think, I'm not taking them into the moguls because they're going to really hurt themselves.
Yeah. It's a I can think of that one that's happened at least 3 times this season gone. You know, you've got a lot more to work on before we go mogul skiing.
And I think we've got to be quite delicate of how we approach that, because that's their dream, that's their goal.
That's right. It's absolutely right. Yeah.
You know, you're more than a ski instructor, more than a teacher when it comes to that.
Yeah.
You've got to be so delicate and say, look, these are the ingredients that you need in the moguls. Let's see if you can do them on this blue run first.
Yeah.
You're missing 3 out of 5 key skills. Come on, let's work on these 3 skills. Come back tomorrow and let's keep ticking these off the list until I can safely put you in a lumpy environment before we even get to bumps. You know,
that's for sure.
Because I think we care. That's not a problem. It's a good skill. We care as instructors because you care for your clients. That's the difference. I've worked in some industries where the instructors in a different industry are just instructors. They're delivering information.
Yeah,
I don't think they really care that much because it's not necessarily their livelihood.
All right. Well, let's. I realise we've been going for quite a long time now, but let's finish off then with kind of what you're up to today. So you still do a bit of boot fitting, but your life takes you now in quite a different direction. You're jetting all over the world, promoting Rolls-Royce and doing driver education, as I understand it. Yeah.
Well, I'm still very serious about my boot fitting. Working with Colin Martin at Solutions of Feet. In my opinion, he's got probably the best workshop in Europe. So I work with him on an appointment basis, probably once or twice a month. Obviously not very much at the moment because everyone's a little quiet.
Yes, for sure.
My automotive work started sort of over 25 years ago. I was doing some racing and some race coaching as well. I water ski raced and jet ski raced, so anything with an engine I was quite keen on, but unfortunately my budget was a little bit less than my need.
Yeah.
So I was cycle racing for a while as well. So the automotive industry came about. Not only was it a key passion, working with an agency that I work for at the moment, they were fortunate enough 15 years ago to get a contract for Rolls-Royce. I worked for a lot of other manufacturers through the agencies. And that gives you, I'm not suggesting the company I work for at the moment is the pinnacle, although they probably are, to be honest. It's Rolls-Royce Motor Cars. So I work through the agency rather than directly for them. They can't employ me directly because I've got about 4 or 5 different job roles with them. So product training, product launching, stunt driving, film work, staff training internally and externally, customer experiences, global media launches, etc. And Rolls-Royce Motor Cars have just a wonderful, wonderful company, part of the BMW group, to work with. I mean, the people are just so passionate, and I align it to a lot of people I've worked with in the past in the winter sports industry. And occasionally you're on the circuit, not always in a Rolls Royce, but often in a Rolls Royce. Believe it or not, we do take Phantoms on circuits. I'm not suggesting a Phantom is the best track car,
no.
But certainly you can pedal on when you've got over 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
I think the level of detail with the brand, bearing in mind they take over a month to build a car, in comparison, you've got your, a high-end luxury car from Mercedes or something, S-Class will take 2 days.
Yeah.
Just the quality of materials and the engineering is fascinating to spend time with the engineers, helping them develop parts, and so understanding why they've developed the certain parts that they have. And of course, the best bit is traveling and meeting some fascinating people, whether it's film stars, royalty, hotel owners, and just really finding out how those people got to where they are now. Interestingly, the likes of Sir Michael Kadori, who owns the Peninsula Group of Hotels, grew up in Gstaad, and he's a keen skier. So there we are on a Rolls-Royce test drive. I met him in his London house and we drove to his other home in the Cotswolds. We had a 6-hour test drive in a Wraith, and within minutes you stop talking about the car because that's a given that it's amazing, and we spent most of the time talking about skiing.
I have to say that valley, I ride through there often. I love the Gstaad, the Sarnen Valley, the Chateau d'Ay, all of that. It's a beautiful, beautiful ski area. Like, it's just so nice. Yeah, it's not too steep, mountains aren't too extreme, loads of trees, the light is lovely over there. Like, it's a beautiful place to ski. It really is. Yeah.
And the customers with Rolls-Royce are lovely, very, very lovely, and some of them have become good friends over the years. You get the opportunity to drive, especially in some of the filming I've done over the last few years, some of the global launches, images that you might see on the internet. But the most fascinating part of my work, I think, at the moment that I've created is the chauffeur program.
Okay.
I was sitting in a traffic jam, it was about 7 years ago now, coming back from the Concours d'Eleganza at Villa d'Este near Lake Como. And I was sitting with the chief executive, and I've been driving the chief executive for Rolls-Royce for the last 10 years, all over the world on various occasions. And he said, Andy, what do you think makes a good chauffeur? As we were sitting in a traffic jam on the way to Milan Airport. And I said, well, there's a number of things. He said, well, being German, he just wanted short, sharp answers. And I said, okay, off the top of my head, they need to be sharp, they need to be effortless, and above all, professional. And he said, when you say sharp, what do you mean? I said, I mean like a James Bond in a Brioni dinner jacket. Oh, okay, because sharp in German means a little bit arrogant and a bit off.
Yeah.
He said, okay, I understand. He said, I like that. Sharp, effortless, and professional. I said, yeah. He said, can you expand upon that? Anyway, 2 hours later, we'd verbally written the global chauffeur program. He signed it off, and he sent me to Singapore. And my first audience was a global media audience of 28 media from all around Asia. And that's 7 years ago now, and it's just gone global. So anyone out there wishes to have the chauffeur certificate from Rolls-Royce, drop me a line. I'll help them out. But there's all sorts of things on the internet. It's called the White Glove program. We call it White Glove, associated with meticulous attention to detail. And so fortunately now the chief executive has appointed me to be the chauffeur trainer. So whether it's the Wynn Hotel, whether it's a private chauffeur, people think it's the dream job, and it is amazing to be appointed that for such an iconic brand. Your mind, they're 115 years old. It's been amazing, absolutely, and an honour to represent a brand like that. I never thought I would be doing that when I was sitting in the ski school at 17 years old in Andorra.
Well, you never know where life's going to take you, do you?
No, it's been amazing, I must admit.
All right. So at the end of all of these, what I do is I give the guests a chance to kind of, say where people can get hold of them if they need to. So if people want to get in touch with you, Andy, where's the best place to get in touch?
I would say an email is the best.
Okay.
My email address is Andi, A-N-D-I, that's my real name, at McCann, M-C-C-A-N-N, and then IX, indigoxray.com. So it reads Andy at McCannix.com.
All right. Well, I'll put a link to that in the notes to the podcast, so that if anyone does want to get in touch with you, they can. That would be brilliant.
There's a whole pile of other subjects we haven't crossed.
Well, maybe we'll do. Maybe the thing is, it's great to get in touch with you now because Joe says that you're the most difficult person to get in touch with when you're working. So
I just make him think that way.
Well, hopefully we can have an Andy part 2, and we'll touch on all the other stuff that we did.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity, and because I do, as you know, the only person I've actually worked for outside of my own work has been Joe, because we've got such a great close relationship, and I just love the way he teaches, and I truly believe what he does. So I've been helping him out during half term. When he's been busy, because obviously he's been working by himself. He
gets lonely, bless him.
I think we need an opportunity to all three of us to get together and have a slide around.
I'd love that.
And we'll do that outside of half term, because it's great to have like-minded people, and I just thanks again for this opportunity. It's been amazing.
Well, that's brilliant. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on the pod, and hopefully we'll grab you another time for Andy McCann part 2. Part 2, you superstar. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, everyone.